Welcome into Rounding the Bases, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust. Hashtag no stopping you. My name is Joel Goldberg, coming to you from the Kansas City Audiovisual Studios, kcav.com. If you've got audiovisual needs, check them out, or I'm happy to make the connection. Real excited for my show today, as I've got a guest that, and I will admit that I can be, anybody that knows me knows this, a bit on the disorganized side. I love to work. And so I'm all over the place all the time. That's by design. It keeps me busy. But I start building these lists, and I don't really always know where they are. They could be in the notes section of my phone or somewhere else. And I start building lists of guests that I want to have on the show. And my guest today has been sort of sitting on that list for quite a while. And then thankfully, Matt DeCourcy, who's a mutual friend of both of ours, said, "Hey, I want to connect you with Lauren Conaway and see if you want to have her on the show." I'm like, "Yes, I want to have her on the show." I've totally whiffed on asking. And so I'm glad that this was pushed forward, because she's someone that is making a huge impact in this community in many ways. So I'm real happy right now to visit with Lauren Conaway, the founder of InnovateHER, and among many, 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 many other things, including a great podcast on the Startup Hustle, which is involved with the aforementioned Matt DeCourcy. Lauren, how are you?
I am fabulous, and I got to tell you, so I may have made your list a while back, but you also made my list.
All right.
Yeah, when I think of like folks that I want to talk to and people that I want to engage about InnovateHER KC, you've been on my list for quite some time, and I mean we've run into each other at events. But, I never made the ask, and then Matt DeCourcy, bless his heart,
Yes.
kind of forced my hand a little bit, and I'm very grateful. So so thank you for having me.
It's kind of weird too, and this is a good thing, but I feel like I know you really well, but we haven't really spoken that many times. We've bumped into events, we've had good conversations. I think we've always said, "Hey, we should connect sometime."
Yeah.
And then it just never has, because you get busy, right? I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yep.
But I feel like through social media, through a lot of mutual acquaintances, that I know you really well. So this conversation is long overdue.
I agree. Yeah, I'm super excited, and I know so many people who speak so highly of you,
Thank you.
both from a professional standpoint, but then also personally. So I'm super psyched.
Well, I think that feeling goes both ways. I hear the same thing. So I'm excited that we get this chance to talk, and I'll pop up some of the comments that come in, because I know that you live in that social media world quite a bit. Not all the time, but you have an amazing following, which is really important for what you're doing, I believe. And when you have a message, when you have a voice, when you have a platform within a community,
Yeah.
you suddenly start to bring a lot of people together. So Alex McCannis was the first to say, "We love you,
Alex.
Lauren," and we will have others that are coming in, I am sure,
I love
throughout the
you
show.
too, Alex.
Lauren, tell me first off, I know, but not everybody watching does, and if they do, they'll still be happy to hear about it again. Tell me about InnovateHER, and let's start there, and then we'll kind of pivot into what's gone on during the pandemic and the evolution of your podcast and other things. But tell me about InnovateHER.
Well, so I have my elevator pitch. Like, what is, because I talk about InnovateHER KC so often, and I love doing it. But what is that condensed? Like, who are we and what do we do? So InnovateHER KC, we are a 3,100 plus member women's leadership community here in the Kansas City area. Everything that we do has comes from a lens of inclusion and low barrier to entry. And we serve women leaders in the verticals of entrepreneurship, community advocacy, civic engagement, education, and the arts. Now, we work with leaders who fall outside of those verticals, but that's where most of our members live. So we have what we call 6 pillars of action. And these are the ways that we serve our members. So we serve our members through social connection, professional development opportunities, championship, mentorship, amplification of work, and resource sharing. And so we try to find ways to offer support and guidance and like the question that we have to ask ourselves every day is, how do we help women become better, more effective leaders? And I don't know, it's a huge privilege. I love what I do.
Well, it's amazing because it, first off, it's important. You know, I so often will ask people, what's your purpose? And it's one of the hardest things to define. I mean, it's the Simon Sinek defining your why, finding your why. And
Love that song.
everyone, you know, I mean, how could you not? But not everybody's seen it, but I would think they have. But, you know, the that is something that is oftentimes easier said than done. It
Yeah.
takes a lot of self-reflection. It takes a lot of digging. It's not enough to say I'm trying to put food on the table. That's the result. But I would think that there are certain, like even for me, I love sports. I always dreamed of being on TV. Well, there's no purpose. There's no why there. You start understanding the why, and I talk about this a lot, when you understand, from my standpoint, the impact I can have on people's lives. They need the distraction. They want to get away for 3 hours. They're
You bring
stationed.
people joy,
You
really.
bring people joy. You bring people together often, even if it's
Yeah.
virtually. You bring them home when they're stationed overseas. So it took me a lot of years to kind of understand the magnitude of that. And now I love that. But, and that's at least the why from the broadcasting standpoint. But I would think for you, understanding that you have the chance to make an impact on women's lives and try to push, you know, equality, inclusion, forward every single day has to be the easiest why. I'm not saying it's the easiest task, but the easiest why in knowing your purpose when you wake up every single day. And that's got to be incredibly gratifying.
It really is. And I often tell our members, and I sometimes I worry that it sounds like it's lip service, but it's 100% true. It is the honor of my life. Like I've done a lot of cool things. I'm pretty happy with where I'm at as an individual, but personally, being able to roll out of bed in the morning and know that what we are building is having impact, and it's making lives better, and it's making women stronger. It's absolutely mind-blowing to me. I don't understand. Like I figure that I must have built up like a lot of really great karma in a past life or something like that. But I'm just profoundly and extraordinarily grateful that I have the opportunity to steward this movement and this community and this traction that we're building.
Well, it's got to be so rewarding every single day. At the same time, Lauren, I'm sure very frustrating, and we're seeing so much of this in terms of equality and what's going on right now with protests and, you know, the social injustice, and that applies to race, that applies to gender,
Yeah.
and so I'm wondering where you're at right now, because this is, and you and I were talking before we went on the air, this is the most challenging time of all of our lives. No one has ever been through a pandemic that is alive right now. No one has ever been through anything like this. And now you throw in the fact that suddenly the world in this country, there's so much disagreement. There's so much, uh, there's so much unrest. There's so much, um, bipartisan, political, on and on and on. You know, we can fill in the blanks on those words. So, where are you right now? Are you hopeful? Are you excited? Are you disappointed? Where are you at?
I mean, for me, it changes from day to day. Like,
Mm.
like my socks, I just wake up and it's like, all right, what mood am I in today? How tired am I? How much sleep did I get last night? So for me personally, it definitely varies. But I think with InnovateHER KC, everything that we do, we try to approach through the lens of intersectionality. So with the understanding that, feminism is not just for white women, and these movements are an important and integral part of the lives of a lot of our members. And so we have to ask ourselves every day, how can we better advocate for these women who are often, women of color, LGBTQIA women, women who are differently able, like, how do we advocate for them? And so when you see, or at least for me, like when I see a lot of the things that I feel a lot of inner turmoil about, lack of representation and, sexual harassment and, problems that these leaders experience in their everyday life, when I see that reflected at a larger level out in society, it's really frustrating.
Mhm.
But on the days when I'm hopeful, I am hopeful because, well, at least we're now having the conversations at a larger scale. I mean, a lot of these conversations are conversations that have been happening in communities of color, and conversations that have been happening kind of, getting swept under the rug. But at least now I think people in power and people in positions of authority have been engaged enough that it's now highly visible. The question is, what are we going to do about it? And so, and I don't know the answer to that question. I know that our members have a lot of really fantastic ideas, and we try to listen to those. But now is the time, I think, to take action. And so I'm a little scared, a little excited, a little looking forward to what the future has to bring.
I think a little scared is okay, right? And not knowing all the answers is, I mean, that's pretty normal, I think, and part of the fun of the journey. And
Yeah.
not that the journey's always fun either, but I think, we've seen this over the course of time. There are going to be steps backwards sometimes to go forwards. Those are frustrating. I try to, when I talk to my wife and kids, to remind them and remind myself that, nothing ever happens in a straight line, and oftentimes it does. Sometimes those step backwards feel like we're really, really going backwards, but oftentimes they then result in positive change forward. And so I hope that that's what's happening
Yeah.
with so much of what's going on right now. But it's scary and it's frustrating, and oh, by the way, everybody's dealing with a pandemic, and you know everybody's got these different sort of levels of comfort. And I'm not talking about mask versus no mask, but I'm talking about, are you comfortable going to meet somebody for coffee sitting outdoors, or are you okay? And so, and so it's forcing people to speak up a little bit.
Yeah.
Like before it's like, well, I'll just go along for whatever. And so I hope people are willing to have better dialogue. And I wonder about InnovateHER and having everybody online and virtual, which I know that you are positioned to do anyway. But how have those discussions with your members changed being at a distance? Because I'm also willing to bet, I know this with some of the people that you're friends with, that or connected with, that face to face, that being together, that getting together for an event is really nice, like,
Yeah.
for all of us.
There's
And
a
we
lot of
don't,
energy that comes from in person
for sure.
interaction.
So how have you been able to navigate that and keep your members connected?
Well, so that's a really interesting question. I mean, we have seen a difference. We were very fortunate in that a lot of what we were doing through InnovateHER KC was already virtual. I think one of the strongest quote unquote programs or initiatives that we have is our online virtual community. That is where our members find a lot of support. That's where they find a lot of resources. And that's where they make a lot of connections. And so we were already doing that online. We have last time I checked, it was 3,135 members, but that changes daily. And so we were doing that piece of it, but we were also very intentional about offering those person to person interaction opportunities, interfacing opportunities. And so, we have monthly happy hours and coffees. We would have events. We would have all of these things where we were deliberately trying to create collisions between our members. And a lot of that, comes from that in-person energy. Like I miss hugging people.
Yeah.
I love hugging people and I miss it. And there's just an energy that you get from talking to somebody face to face and having to look them in the eye that you're missing with Zoom. And so we did see a drop in attendance for some of our events, just because I think people are experiencing a lot of Zoom, like you and I were talking earlier, Zoom fatigue. I mean, at this point, I feel like it's Zoom exhaustion. Like, but and we've just had to continue to build on that. Like in early days, it was almost like a land rush for virtual events. Like I just remember being overwhelmed by all of these events that people wanted to do. And it was like, oh, hey, look, we're pivoting. We're going to have, these online events and, come and join us. And there were so many available. And now I feel like things have kind of calmed down a little bit. And so we're starting to build on those virtual events again. That was our big pivot. Luckily we just have this extremely engaged community of women leaders who they're going to connect with each other even without my help. We just create a platform and a venue, but these women want to connect with each other. So they're going to do it.
I was thinking, as you were saying about loving to hug, I'm the same way. And, whether it's the hug or, it's always at a minimum for me with the baseball players, it's at least the fist bump or something. And it's like, now it's maybe a Zoom call or a text message,
Yeah.
or it's Zoom calls every day with press conferences and this and that. And, I was going in the other day to, Dr. Michelle Robbins' office, and she's like the greatest hugger ever. I mean, I think she signs all of her emails, hugs, comma Michelle or whatever. And
she really is.
And
great adjustments.
the best.
Yes.
And I could go in there every day and be happy, but it's usually once every 3 or 4 weeks. And it's the strangest thing, you're in there with a mask, you feel totally safe, and then you go to say goodbye and it's like air hug. And it's like, boy, if she can't hug anybody, I mean, it's just strange, but we adapt and, we move forward. And I know that that's so important with, for everyone, but certainly with what you're doing. Let's throw up a couple of more people. Kiana Sinks a little while ago said the show has officially began. She's my little sister,
Yeah, I love Kiana, and she's doing such amazing work in the
my God.
With Black Excellence and with Up Next. I mean, she's killing it.
and she's 25 and I mean, I sit there and I think I wish I knew what she knew at 25. Like
Can you imagine like being that cool at 25, like where you would be now? Like I can't wait to see where she ends up, because I'm like, man, I was not that cool at 25.
I was not either.
Like
I was not either.
And stupidity.
Yeah, so if she's still watching, my phone will blow up right now, but but if she's moved on, I mean, she's got a lot of stuff going on. So I love her. And then of course, Erin, I'm still going to hug you both. I'm willing to take my chances. Hey, wait, you speak for yourself, Erin. Okay. We're trying to be safe.
Elbow bump it is.
Yeah. Little elbow bump. She's going to go in for the hug one way or another.
Hold on, real quick.
Got to get the shot of that. And yes, Kiana is still watching. Okay. Let me get back on track here. I get very easily distracted. Anybody that knows me knows that is the case. But let's talk a little bit more about InnovateHER. What I really want to do is ask, for those that don't know, for those that are watching, maybe have heard, maybe haven't, how can they get involved in InnovateHER?
Well, so low barrier to entry is one of our highest priorities as an organization. And so it's super easy. If you are female or female identifying in the Kansas City area, if you are interested in activating as a woman leader, if you are interested in hearing about the cool things that other women leaders in Kansas City are doing, we've got a pretty deep digital footprint. So definitely follow us on social media. We've got LinkedIn. Wait, hold on. We have Twitter. I don't really like Twitter that much, so we're not extremely active on it, but it's just not my favorite. But LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, come check us out. Come to a virtual happy hour. I mean, those are open to our male allies. We love dudes. One of our foundational tenets is we elevate women without pushing other population groups down. And so, we definitely appreciate anybody who's willing to come in and step and say, hey, I support this. You can join the InnovateHER KC community as a woman leader if you are on Facebook, and we're actually working, we've got some fun stuff coming down the pipeline, but we're working on ways to connect with members who aren't on Facebook. I didn't know this until recently, but apparently Facebook is for the olds. I was not aware. Um, but how do we connect with people who don't log in regularly? So we've been working with Prime Digital Academy actually to come up with some tools to connect with audiences who aren't all about the social media. But yeah, so I mean, join the community, come to an event, like us on social. Like these are pretty low barrier, easy
Yes.
things to do to connect and engage.
And then I love the fact that there's so many different benefits, I guess, that people can get from being involved in Innovate Her, and some of it might just be the camaraderie of it, right, Lauren? I mean, some
Yeah.
of it might just be the connectivity and the networking end of things.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things that's most, I guess, gratifying to me is when I'm, I keep pretty close tabs on the virtual community on Facebook most days. Like it just kind of depends on what I'm up to. But what'll be really, I love it when women share like, hey, I'm having a difficult time because of dot, dot, dot. And then you will immediately see this like rush of women who are like, you got this, here's some advice, here's a resource, let us help you, this is what we can do, you're amazing. And it's just this like I would almost, I feel like if I were to post something like that, like it would almost be overwhelming because there's just such an outpouring of love and support. But I mean, that's my favorite thing about the whole deal, giving women the opportunity to support each other. And that has very little to do with me. It has very little to do with InnovateHER KC, and it has everything to do with the hearts of these women that join. Like they just, all we had to do was give them the opportunity to do it. But the desire to support and uplift and elevate and amplify other women was already there. It's amazing to watch.
Well, you're the one, and I know you're being humble, authentically so, but I mean, one, the message is when you have great people surrounding you, it makes your job obviously that much easier. Somebody's got to run the show, though, and I know that you have amazing staff and board and everything. I mean, this is like any great team. This is not a one person show, and so you have all of that, and it's a testament to we know so many of the same people, we know so many of the same women that they're amazing people, and so when you have, you know. The Aaron Haydens of the world or the Kiana Sinks of the world, Alex McAnderson, and we can go on and on and on. There she is again. Innovate Her is such an amazing group of women. Everyone is so supportive, but you have this, if I want to do it in sports terms, and not everything needs to be with me, but you have an amazing team of people within your culture too, right? And so that has to make things so much easier. So let's talk a little bit about the podcast. And you already had a podcast, so everyone's starting a podcast right now, which I think is great because it's and I don't say that in a bad way. I mean, with so many people at home, like there's never been a better time to just, why not try one? Like go for it, and not everything has to be a high rated podcast, and they could all be differently and on, but you had one and then you made a pivot, which I blame Matt DeCourcy for in the best of ways, of course. in the best of ways. Tell me about the podcast.
Well, so we had the Innovator podcast, and it was I had never actually thought about podcasting before. It was definitely a case of imposter syndrome, like who wants to hear what I have to say? But then I was approached by an organization who was like, hey, if we were to take care of all of the production and blah, 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 would you be interested in just interviewing women and talking about innovators? And I was like, well, I do that every day anyway, so why not put a mic in front of my face and see how it goes? And so I was handed this opportunity, and I loved the Innovator podcast. Like, I mean, honestly, when I think about the things that I love to do, talking to women, talking about women, and the cool thing. So the way that I phrase it with people out in the community is innovators are badass women doing kick-ass things. Like that's kind of that's what we're all about. And I love telling those stories. And so the Innovator podcast kind of got me started down that journey. But then Matt DeCourcy, who has been really, really transformational for us as an organization, just with his level of support, and he, throwing the support of Full Scale, his awesome startup behind it. He approached us and he was like, we want to do a couple of things. We want to grow Startup Hustle. We want to find ways to introduce ourselves to new communities. We've already achieved this level of success. Would you be interested in being a host? And I mean, of course, my answer was hell yes. And then the next part was, how do we make it work? And so the cool thing about Matt and Matt Squared, as I call them.
Yes.
But the cool thing about Matt Squared is that they allow me the freedom to be a little different. I think that in the Startup Hustle, like my episodes of the Startup Hustle podcast, I put a lot of focus on not just what you do, but who are you as a leader? Like, how did you get here personally? And then let's talk about how that translates professionally. And so I love that they have allowed that latitude for us, because I think that that's a really important part and a really integral thing that you need to incorporate when you're telling women's stories, because our journeys they're different,
Sure.
and sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad. And but you just telling that part of the story, like, I just love doing it. And I'm so grateful to Full Scale and to Matt and to the whole team, really, because there is a whole team of amazing people at Full Scale who make this podcast happen. And they do such a good job. And it is so easy for me. Like, all I have to do is I have to find women who have amazing stories and I have to help them tell it. Like that. It's so cool. I love it.
Well, that part's easy, right? I mean,
yeah.
I've said that with this podcast too, that everyone has a story to tell. So the challenge sometimes is digging a little bit to find out what that story is. They may not even know they have a story to tell, but you start having these conversations. And so when you have 3,100 members or whatever it is, and you're curious and you start asking questions, you suddenly realize that every single one of those women have a story to tell. So in theory, you have years worth of guests lined up if you want them.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, right now, like I have a whole bunch of episodes in my back pocket. But I mean, we just have such interesting conversations. I mean, one day I could be talking to Wendy Gillis from the Kauffman Foundation, and we're talking about, equitable entrepreneurship and the work that, the Kauffman Foundation has they're like $1 billion nonprofit, and then the next episode I'm talking to Shay Geist, who has a company called The Shark Off, and we're talking about sharks, which was like, I have to tell you, it was one of the weirder episodes I've ever done, because I was not expecting to have like a Discovery Channel style show, but it was so fun learning about sharks and the technology behind this product that they create, and then, we talked to the Erin Haydens of the world, who are out there not just, Erin's a great marketer, but she's also out there, she's putting herself out there and she's creating opportunity for women in communities of color. And like, she's finding different touch points to do that. And so we kind of run the gamut, of the women that we talk to, and every single one of them is just fascinating, each in their own way. And I love it.
Well, and that's the beauty of it. I mean, that gets back to a little bit of that purpose or that energy too, and there are days, we all have them. I certainly do, where you kind of hit the wall a little bit, and then you stumble upon one of those stories, and it's like it fills the tank back up, and you get excited and you want to share those stories. And so I think that's, again, when the curiosity is there and you just ask a few questions, there are amazing stories to be told. And every now and then you stumble into one that has to do with sharks, which is pretty cool too, right?
So random, but I loved it.
That's the beauty of it, when you stumble into that randomness, because you're like, wait a minute, that is something that I never expected to hear today. And so I'm excited to to be able to tell that story. So a couple things before we wrap it up. First off, I asked before where we're at as a community, as society. There's so much negative out there. By the way, probably good move staying off of Twitter. I live on Twitter because of the baseball end of things, but there's so much negativity. I've got this like filter, this like mental filter that can kind of push stuff away and ignore the nastiness out there. There's LinkedIn can be such a safer place if you could just handle the random messages of people wanting to go for coffee that you've never met before, that have no real tact in the way they ask or approach. But when you could push that stuff aside, LinkedIn's a safer place. But what I wanted to ask was how far do we have to go? Because I know, and it's a big question too. And I
Oh,
don't, by
I'm
the way,
to keep from crying. Sorry.
no, I know, but like this gets back to the, the two, the steps backward and forward. And because I think that probably for our lifetime, there will always be a long ways to go. But
Sure.
how far have we come? How far do we need to go? I know that's a really big and general question, but I ask it just because I know that I know we have a long ways to go, but I'm trying to get a feel for how well we're doing.
I mean, that's a difficult question to answer because it's another one of those things where I think it kind of varies from day to day for me.
Sure.
But I mean, I look at the women who have done the work so that I can do my work. So, we recently lost Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Like she was one of them, Bella Abzug, like all these women activists who advocated for change, Tarana Burke, who started the Me Too movement, and her voice unfortunately has kind of gotten lost in all of this. So I look at these women who are trailblazers, they're change makers, and they have been, I don't necessarily want to say fearless. I hate when people say fearless because I don't think any one of us are fearless. When you take up a mantle for a cause, there's still fear there. The point is you push through anyway. But at any rate, like I look at the work of these women that InnovateHER KC builds on, and I'm profoundly grateful because I do think we have come a long way. We women have rights and protections that we didn't have before. I can go out and I can use a credit card and I can get a job, and I own my house, and all of these things are fantastic. But then I look around and I see a lot of things that concern me, like, do I or do I not have the ability to make choices about my own body? Do I or do I not feel uncomfortable walking into a room where I'm a manager? And I mean, this happened many times throughout my career where I was the only female manager at the table and I was dealing with some pretty toxic circumstances. It happened a bunch. I look around and I see inequities in pay that for me as a white woman are hard enough to swallow. But then I look at women of color and I say, it's so, how do you not see this disparity and feel deep shame and concern as someone in power who has the influence to make these decisions? And so we've come really far, but we have really far to go. And I tell people on a pretty regular basis, actually, like someday, because I've had people come to me and they're like, what you're doing is sexist. Having places and spaces that are just for women, that's just sexism. And my response to that is, someday I want to manage myself out of a job. I don't want there to be a need for women to have a place to convene and share their experiences just amongst each other. I want the female experience and the person, like the intersectional experience, I want it to be so pervasive and so prevalent in our society that it just is, but we're just not there yet. And so someday, InnovateHER KC may not exist. And I would be totally okay with that, because to me, that would mean there is a society that welcomes and champions and supports and uplifts women as a matter of course. And that it just doesn't happen right now. And so until that time, I'm going to fight like hell, and we're going to fight like hell to keep moving that needle, like to your point, taking those steps back, taking those steps forward. And yeah, we're just going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about that a lot. I mean, my mom's told me stories about she was a music major and a teacher, and she still has, I guess, musical talent and abilities. I think she's passed that on to my daughter, but she went into that profession initially because she was told back in, I think, the 60s, you could either be a teacher. I think
Yeah.
it was either teacher or nurse. Those were the choices. And her brothers weren't told that, and she ended up going back to community college and became a computer programmer. And a computer programmer, worked her way up, and eventually became an executive, leading a lot of people. And I know she dealt with the crap every single day, being a female leader that the men didn't deal with. And so, on the one side, here she achieved being an executive at really the highest of levels before retiring, and that was huge progress, because she was told she couldn't even get into a field like that when she started, so she didn't pursue it. At the same time, the fact that she was still dealing with all that crap. So you see some of the evolution. You're not allowed to, okay, you are allowed to, but you're going to get a lot of crap for doing it. We have to get to a point, and this is true in gender, race, across the board, where people can walk into a room and feel comfortable and not be questioned for who they are. And that seems like such common sense, but it just it takes time.
Well, and a lot of people talk about diversity these days, and I'm very intentional when we're talking about InnovateHER KC and our purpose. Like, I want to talk about inclusion, and I want to talk about belonging, because you can have diversity in teams, you can have diversity in your life. Like, you can see representation from people who don't look, think, and act like you, but inclusion is what we're actually going for. Like, I want a woman of color to walk into an InnovateHER KC space and say, hey, I belong here. This is built for me. And I don't know. It's a journey every day, trying to figure out how best to do that. But that's the end goal. And it's one of those things where the goalposts are always kind of moving, and you always kind of have to figure out what fits best for the situation. But I mean, that's what we're aiming for. Places and spaces where all women feel represented and feel comfortable and feel welcomed and feel like they have a voice and they have agency in their leadership journeys. So I don't know. I mean, we're gonna get there. I feel like it's gonna take a while.
Well, we would all like everything to be done today.
Sure.
And it's not that easy, as you know.
Yeah.
But then again, you wouldn't have InnovateHER, which you already said would be fine because you'd move on to something else.
I don't get me wrong. I love what I'm doing.
I know you do. I really
do. But
listen, I think I have an idea that if this all gets figured out, and it is going to take time, it should. I wish that you could hit a switch and get this all solved today, tomorrow. But you're pecking away at it little by little by little by little. I'm sure there's some days where it doesn't feel like it, but you're moving the needle. And hopefully one day you could sit there and say, hey, InnovateHER was fun. Let's start something else. And let's make an impact elsewhere. But in the meantime, but in the meantime, you'll continue to make that huge difference and impact in the community, and in people's lives. So I'll wrap it up. A couple more comments that came in. Kiana said, Lauren, I see your organization taking over KC here soon. It's already on to something special. Authenticity is what you have been so successful at. No surface level, caring and building true relationships. So that's the ultimate compliment from Kiana. Yes, you're gonna make Lauren emotional.
I'm a crier. Like, there's no shame here.
Erin says that she's causing all sorts of chaos on LinkedIn today. Shocker.
Definitely check out Erin's profile. She has some thoughts.
I will. She's obviously a must follow. And then Alec too. You're saying, like, yes, this is a group of women, but we don't want to exclude. We want to bring it in. There are a lot of people out there, a lot of men that want to help too. And I know that that's important to you guys. And so, I want to say, keep up the great work. You don't need my affirmation on that, but there are a lot of people that see what you're doing. Look, I think coming from anyone, right? I mean, we all need that. We all need that support. We all need that affirmation to some extent to know that people are watching and listening and paying attention. And so keep up keep up, obviously, doing what you're doing. It's amazing. It's inspiring. It's important work. And I will ask one more time, if anyone wants more information or to get involved in InnovateHER, how can they do that?
Well, so I will go ahead. I think this is on your LinkedIn. So I'll go ahead and I'll post the join link for InnovateHER KC, and then maybe a couple other links that might be interesting. I can do that once we hop off here. If you would like, if you want to connect at a deeper level, my email is lauren@innovateherkc.com. I love having coffees and hearing from people on ways that they can support, or ways that we can support them. So that's a way to connect. And yeah, definitely follow us on social. We share our events, we share, the stuff. And most importantly, like, it's that amplification piece in our pillars of action, but we love to share the stories of cool things women are doing in our community.
I love it. Keep up the great work. Again, innovateherkc.com, and check out all the social media feeds and all that. There'll be more information up there. And check out Lauren on the Startup Hustle too.
Yeah,
because they're doing awesome things there.
Please do. My episodes drop on Thursdays, but Startup Hustle, there are a lot of amazing stories that are being told over there. I'm so proud.
No doubt about it. Well, this was a lot of fun. I'm glad. Long overdue.
Finally.
Not anyone's fault really, but I'm glad the Corsi pushed us together and said, let's go. We needed that little nudge. So now if I can find wherever that list is, I can erase you from the list of target guests, but I don't know where the list is. I mean, you're probably on 5 lists. So
yeah. So all right, man. Well, it has been a true pleasure. And I knew it would be. Thank you.
The feeling again is mutual. Hang tight for a second. I want to talk to you when we get off, but really, really enjoyed the visit with Lauren Conaway, InnovateHER. This was awesome. And so again, encourage everybody to check that out. And thanks to all of you for tuning in today. We've got another great episode tomorrow. Want to remind everyone that I am fundraising for Big Brothers Big Sisters, one of the most wanted honorees. So if you have any interest at all, throw in a text JGold to 44321. $10, $25, $50. Just going to continue raising money over these next few months. So if you want to help out for a phenomenal cause, defending children, it's local, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Kansas City. I would love it if you would do that. Very appreciative of you watching today. And thanks to kcav.com. It's the audio visual. They've helped me put this together. So if you have audio visual needs, check them out, kcav.com. And of course, to my big title sponsor, Enterprise Bank and Trust, #No Stopping You, and their continued support of this podcast. My name is Joel Goldberg. Thanks for watching Rounding the Bases, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust, #No Stopping You, and hope to see you back here tomorrow.